you go down here to the creek and follow the creek down until you come to a building that's rotted and fell down beside the road. And so you stay right there, and we're going to drive that area and come to you. And this is the mountain, and here's a hump one goes just like that. Another hump is like that. And the road runs along here, and a middle here over to the branch that run this way, and then a mountain went up that way. No sooner than I got down there, I heard this. And that's the deer antlers hitting the limbs, sharpening them off of that, and they're way back there holler. And that deer was really leading them. So, these three guys walking this road now with a gun on the shoulder, waiting for these guys to drive, and I didn't know they were in there. My crowd didn't know it. So I hid behind the stump, and they're still walking the road. See? And here come this buck off now. Come off and come right down in front of this guy and saw him, and he's still walking the post in the road. And I'm in this one up here, hid behind the stump. And you can't believe where a deer can go. And that deer, instead of jumping back and going in, saw him, went right back. And the mountain's just like that, and here's the stream. And that deer stayed right along in here and come up to my opening and come across and come right straight over to me. And come so close all I could see in my scope was just this. I guess where he was going to be, and there was thick pines now going up this mountain on my side. So he's already crossed the meadow now, and I can't see nothing but just see him going across my scoops like that. So he got on out there about as far as that building there from him. Maybe not that far, I said near the car. And I'm timing just where he's going to hit the ground at his jump. And just as he hit the ground, I squeezed the trigger. And the deer turned just like that quick, and went right in that thick pine.
So you missed him
went all the way to the top, way up on the ridge, in those thick pines, and then there was a pasture here, and one lone pine out there in that pasture. And that deer, I kept watching up there, and that deer come out there and got behind that one lone pine, stopped, looking for me, didn't know where the shot come from. See? So, now that's a long ways up there. So I could see through my scope, and I raised up just a little bit, and I shot right through that pine tree. That's about where I thought that deer would be, and I squeezed the trigger. That deer come out at 90 miles an hour, come down through that pasture, come on down, jump the barbed wire fence, jump the branch. When it jumped the branch, there was a road that had been hauling wood out of there, and you could see way up through this road. So I'm standing there with gun ready. I kind of figured that deer was going to cross that road, and maybe go up the road, because the mountain ran up here, and this road right at the foot of it, see? And sure enough, that deer crossed that branch, fence. Now, they can cross the fence, you don't know, but he went over that fence and just like that in the branch, and started up that road. And I'm all ready for him, and I raised up and shot just a little bit high at his rear end. And the deer disappeared, completely disappeared.
But you didn't see him moving out of there.
But he didn't go on up the road. He went up the road all right, but I didn't know this, never been in there before. And that road, right when I shot him, that road had turned just like that. And he had already turned, just before I squeezed that trigger, he had already made his turn to go up that road. And that's the reason I didn't see him. I squeezed the trigger, and I didn't see the deer fall, didn't see nothing happen. And I went on up that road, and I looked all around there, and I couldn't see no sign of where the deer could have been. And here's one of these guys come over there, you know, they were drove in there. Come over to me, and you talked about bowling me out. He really bowled me out. He said, he said, how are you doing hunting? I told him, he said, you ought to quit hunting. He said, you can't shoot no better than that. He said, you shot that, stand there about 3 times and never cut a hair. I said, don't tell me. I said, I know I've hit the deer. I know it's a deer. And he said, you didn't cut a hair. By that time, another one walked up and said, buddy, you ought to throw your gun away. What are you hunting for? You couldn't hit the side of a barn. They're poor, and I'm just in there listening. But I let them work it off. And I said, all right, now you fellas, I had this little story about all of this. I said, I had to hit the deer up here on the ridge. I said, I shot through that pine, I had to hit that deer, and I'm going to go up there and see if I did any sign. This one guy already did all the talking ball now. He said, I'm going with you. He said, I ain't going to take no more alibis. I said, you come on, go with me. Walked up there and right to the rolling pine, and here's a little puddle of blood, just like foam, about that big, sitting up there, and I said, I hit him the first shot. No, he said, you hit him here. I said, no, I hit him the first shot down there. And he stood there and bled. I said, when I shot here, he was gone. Yeah. And he started to turn around. He said, wait a minute. He looked out over there, and he said, wait a minute, here's something here. And he picked up some fur and a piece of rib. A little splinter rib about that long.
So you did hit him the second
shot?
shot?
So I done hit him the second shot. He said, look, he said, you done hit this deer the second shot. He said, look, let's go where he shot him the third time. So we went down there, and by this time his whole crowd is there. And so the guy who went with me up there, he said, well, fellow said, don't jump him no more. He said, he done hit him, and we done found 2 bottles of blood and bone up there. The rest said he hit him. He said, that deer's going to die. And he said, don't bone him out no more. He said, he done his share. So we started on up, and I had never gone far enough up the road to find where the deer had turned. So when I shot at that deer the second time, I shot at him right in here. And you can't believe what a deer can take. So anyway, he had already got his balance going around the curve when I squeezed the trigger. And here's 1 foot hit here, and 1 foot hit over there, and then another one up here, and there's where he got up and crawled through, and in the mountains there's a little old bush growth. We call them oak bush, but they're not. They have acorns, but they don't get much higher than that, and the limb will grow here this way, and here, and you can't get to them to save your life. You can't get to them. And right up beside him. So I told him, I said, well, that deer went up this bank. Now I said, I'm going around up here. I can't go through that myself. I'm going up here and get up on the ridge and come back. You're supposed to stay here and I'll call you. So I went on up there. No, folks, I'll go with you. And so we went on up there, and we finally got up on the ridge and come on back and kept on until we got back. And when we got back, and I just happened to look off down that way in the field, and there lays the deer. You can't believe what I saw. One shot had gone through right here and cut an artery. That's where it bled the first time. The next one went through his rib area here, and that's going out on this side. The next one went through in this right in here and followed underneath his spine all the way through and come through and knocked his shoulder out and come on out here and knocked his eyeballs clear out of the socket, and that deer still went that far. You can't believe it. And they saw that and saw that deer fly, and I told them, I said, the deer shot all loose pieces. And they did, and they
hope
took
they
all
apologized.
small amount out, they took it all back.
3 shots, 3 hits.
3 hits, and we'll take it all back. We don't have no more to say, because I can't believe what that deer could ever carry that much lead. I cannot believe it.
Something.
So
What about those fences?
All right. Now I've done killed a deer.
Yeah.
They haven't got it.
Right.
So I said to the fellows I was with, I said, look, I said, fellows, now, I said, they drove that deer to me. And I killed the deer, and I said, I don't want the deer. I'm with you. Now, it's up to you to do what you want to do with my deer. But I said, if I have my way, I'd give them this deer. They drove the deer in here, and we've got a deer, they haven't. And I said, they drove the deer in me, and I shot the deer. And I said, now, if I have my way, but I said, I'd give them the deer. And they said, that's mighty nice of you. I said, okay. And so I give them deer. And they saved that antlers right there for me. And now the next day, after that, I was out with my gun, with my 20-gauge gun, and a 6-point buck walked out. Wasn't as far from near that house there. Right out of 6 pines, walked out and stopped sideways just like that. And I'm
already
right
had
there
your deer.
with my 20-gauge with 2 pumpkin balls in it, and gloves on, and it's snowing. So I'm trying to get my finger in there to get my gun up, you know, because the deer just walked right out of the pines, and while I'm trying to get my finger through there with the glove on, it went off. Yeah. The deer just I'd have had 3 deer
in 4 days.
And those guys